If you still think Donald Trump controls every room he walks into, watch what happens when someone finally says no. By midnight, 3 major networks had broken their regular programming schedules to discuss the absolute meltdown occurring live on the West Coast. By morning, the hashtag tracking the exact words of the deleted post had reached 50 million interactions. By the following week, the entire concept of a temporary late-night suspension had been completely redefined by a single perfectly executed ambush. All of it started because one man assumed a deleted post could remain buried under the weight of his own presidency. The atmospheric pressure inside the El Capitan Entertainment Center feels entirely wrong for a triumphant late-night return, the air hanging heavy, thick, and undeniably electric. The brilliant studio lights push 2 stops brighter than a standard monologue, washing the iconic stage in an unforgiving, clinical illumination that bleaches the warmth from the audience. Jimmy Kimmel is already positioned at his desk, his posture perfectly still, his eyes scanning the room with the quiet, absolute control of a broadcaster who holds the detonator to his own career. The floor director stands in the shadows near the band, his headset pushed entirely off his ear, sensing a massive deviation from the network-approved script. There is no gentle bass line from the band, no polite industry chatter from the VIP section. The complete absence of sound acts as a suffocating physical presence. Donald Trump's entrance onto the stage, a negotiated, highly publicized attempt to show dominance after the suspension, is an exercise in claiming territory. His walk deliberate, slow, and heavily weighted as he moves toward the guest chair. He pauses just behind the seat, aggressively adjusting the lapels of his dark suit in a purely theatrical display of power before finally sitting down. The moment he plants himself, he spreads his arms wide over the armrests, physically expanding his footprint to own every possible inch of the camera's frame. His eyes lock onto Kimmel with a flat, unwavering superiority, a gaze designed to shrink the host's presence in his own reclaimed studio. He leans immediately toward the desk microphone, delivering his opening line with a smirk heavily disguised as casual banter. "I was told this network finally found the courage to cancel you, but I suppose they needed someone to fill the dead air at midnight." He launches directly into a relentless verbal barrage, stacking his attacks in a deliberate rhythm designed to overwhelm the acoustic space. "Without me sitting in this chair tonight, your little comeback broadcast wouldn't even register a blip on the national ratings," he projects, his voice echoing sharply off the studio's acoustic paneling. He pivots seamlessly to a deeply personal dismissal, waving a hand toward Kimmel, while calling him just another failing, overrated partisan desperately clinging to a desk because he cannot accept that the country has moved on. He claims total authority over the environment, loudly reminding the silent room that he dictates global policies, runs economies, and certainly does not need a lecture from a comedian who had to beg a network for his job back. People tune in because they want absolute winners, and quite frankly, there is nobody else on this stage who fits that description, he concludes, crossing his arms definitively. Through this entire onslaught, Jimmy Kimmel stays completely, terrifyingly silent. He simply watches him, his expression an unreadable mask of absolute calculation. A prominent network executive in the third row nervously adjusts his collar, the collective tension in the room becoming a physical weight. The silence stretches out, turning Trump's booming rhetoric into a hollow echo chamber of his own profound insecurity. Then, Kimmel finally moves. He shifts his weight slightly, leaning his forearms against the polished desk, and when he speaks, his voice drops significantly lower, entirely devoid of his usual late-night projection. "That was a performance, and it was convincing. But performances end, and this conversation is just starting." The studio instantly goes dead quiet, the air freezing in the lungs of every single attendee. The massive production screen behind them flickers to life, bypassing the show's glossy graphics package to play a raw, unedited video capture of Trump's Truth Social feed from exactly 48 hours prior. It shows the exact moment the president uploaded and quickly deleted a deeply racist, conspiratorial video attacking the Obamas, a post the White House had frantically blamed on a rogue staffer. Displayed here in stark, high-definition silence, the digital capture lands like a physical blow. Kimmel does not raise his voice. He simply asks a devastating question about how a man claiming absolute strength relies on the architecture of midnight deletions to hide his actual beliefs. Trump immediately leans forward, loudly denying the context of the screen capture and calling it doctored, fake news manufactured by a failing network. Kimmel counters calmly, letting his denial hang in the dead air for a brutal 5-second pause before he quietly signals the control booth. A low murmur ripples through the audience, a collective realization that the host is not backing down a single inch. Kimmel reaches slowly beneath his desk, moving with the deliberate precision of a surgeon operating on an exposed nerve. He places a plain manila folder on the surface, opening it to reveal certified digital timestamps and metadata, proving the exact device and IP address used to publish the deleted post. Trump's hand shoots across the space between them, an instinctual, panicked grab for the documents. Kimmel stops him effortlessly, placing his palm flat and firm against the center of the folder. The tight camera angle catches the sudden, uncontrollable tremor vibrating through Trump's extended fingers. The screen behind them shifts again, displaying a meticulously documented timeline connecting the exact minute of the deleted post to a simultaneous phone call logged from the presidential residence. Trump tries to talk over the visual evidence, his voice rising in pitch as he dismisses the timeline as a desperate partisan hoax. Kimmel slows his cadence down even further, forcing the room to absorb the sheer weight of the verified digital footprint. The tension in the studio is so thick it feels actively dangerous. A raw audio recording suddenly overrides the house sound system. It is a captured voicemail left on a campaign server just minutes after the deletion, Trump's own voice, stripped of equalization, ordering a communications director to draft the rogue staffer excuse immediately. The audience is physically hit by the recording, a collective, sharp intake of breath vibrating through the stadium seating. Trump shouts that the audio is illegally obtained and heavily spliced by deep state operatives. Kimmel does not argue. He simply displays the digital forensic verification from an independent cybersecurity firm on the main screen, proving the file is entirely, unequivocally unaltered. A door near the stage left curtain opens, and two individuals walk slowly into the spotlight. The first is a former digital campaign staffer, a young man whose testimony is entirely procedural, detailing exactly how he was ordered to fall on the sword and accept the blame for the racist post. "I rehearsed walking away 6 times in the parking garage before I finally found the courage to quit," the staffer admits, his voice shaking but remarkably controlled. Trump aggressively attacks the young man's credibility, yelling that he was fired for gross incompetence and is simply looking for a quick book deal. The staffer absorbs the verbal assault by standing perfectly still, his silence magnifying Trump's absolute desperation. Then the second witness steps to the microphone. She was a senior communications assistant, a woman forced to draft the official White House denial while under the suffocating weight of a strict non-disclosure agreement. Her testimony is emotionally devastating, detailing the intense isolation and the profound personal cost of enforcing a public lie to protect a fragile ego. Her throat works visibly before the words finally come, her fingers gripping the microphone stand until her knuckles are entirely colorless, a tear slipping down her cheek without her wiping it away. Trump leans forward, his face flushed dark red, shouting that she is a traitor, betraying the loyalty of the administration. The assistant looks directly at him, her voice breaking but laced with absolute titanium. "They didn't buy my silence, they rented it, and the lease just expired." The audience does not cheer or scream, they break. One person in the front row stands up, clapping slowly. Another joins. Within seconds, the room is consumed by a slow, deliberate wave of applause. Not for the late-night host, but for the truth finally breathing in the open. The main screen splits in half, displaying the domestic metadata timeline on the left, and on the right, matching internal network logs from Truth Social, proving the deletion command came directly from the primary executive account. The alignment is absolute and undeniable. Trump's denials shift frantically from screaming fake news to yelling that the servers were illegally hacked, a desperate pivot that exposes the sheer, naked panic beneath his anger. His physical collapse unfolds across multiple, undeniable channels. His breathing becomes heavily audible, his chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow bursts that his lapel mic picks up clearly. His hands, previously gripping the armrests, begin wiping frantically at the sweat pooling along his hairline. His posture slumps inward, his broad shoulders stiffening and shrinking as he leans away from the visual evidence on the massive screens. His eyes dart aggressively around the room, refusing to settle on Kimmel, the witnesses, or the cameras, eventually going completely, terrifyingly blank. His jaw clenches so tightly the muscle jumps, working side to side in a silent, grinding panic. His verbal progression spirals from confident denial to accusing Kimmel of an illegal ambush, dropping into a procedural complaint about FCC broadcast rules, attempting a weak burst of bravado about his poll numbers, and finally landing in total, absolute silence. Kimmel looks at him, his expression entirely neutral. "If everything I've shown tonight is a lie, then show the truth, not with insults, with evidence." Trump opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. The aftermath escapes the studio like a controlled detonation. Backstage, a veteran floor director stands completely frozen, his headset hanging halfway off his ear as he watches the monitors in stunned disbelief. Trump's lead communications aide is seen typing so frantically on his phone that autocorrect sends pure nonsense to the press pool for 3 straight messages. Trump storms down the exit corridor without a single word to his detail, moving the way a man moves through a house he knows is already engulfed in flames. Within 8 minutes, the first unauthorized clip hits the internet. Within 20 minutes, the confrontation is segmented into 12 independent pieces, each spreading at viral velocity. Cable news networks immediately cut into their late-night programming, their graphics departments frantically rebuilding the digital timeline with red arrows and annotations. Anchors replay the confrontation, allowing Kimmel's thematic anchor word to sit on the screen for a full segment without adding their own commentary. Trump's counterattack begins hours later in a series of escalating rage posts, the capital letters increasing and the exclamation points multiplying with every single update. Yet, beneath every frantic denial, users reply with screenshots of the exact server logs proving the architecture of his lies. The public shift is instantaneous. People are no longer debating the politics of the suspension. They are dissecting the psychology of a man whose entire digital facade shattered on live television. The assistant's testimony about rented silence becomes a global caption, trending worldwide as the definitive summary of the night. The story does not end with a sudden confession. It burns slow, a fire that cannot be contained by late-night posts or legal threats. Because an architecture built on deletions only holds until someone finally refuses to look away. If this changed how you see power, hit subscribe. If it didn't, watch it again. The details you missed the first time are the ones that matter most. Notifications on. Next one drops soon.